Hi, guys. Welcome to the chat. Welcome to tonight's live chat. I want to go live on Instagram. So give me like 2 seconds to make sure that I hit the right buttons. Okay. Um, okay, guys, I am all set. I want to go back and welcome some people. I literally just sat down. I was running around and literally just sat down. So I'm gonna scroll back through and just welcome you and see who's here. I see. Okay, I did go back earlier too, and I saw Sammy. Sammy, I'm just going to verbalize that I thank you for that. I appreciate that. There's not a nice, I don't think a nicer way that could have been said. So thank you for pointing that out. So welcome, Sammy. Glad to have you in tonight's chat. Cherry's Jubilee, glad to have you back. Thank you for coming. Deb, hello and welcome. I think I already said welcome to you in the chat, but I want to verbalize it. So welcome. Let me go through this a little bit. Black girls getting their shift together. Hello and welcome. Glad to have you on tonight's live chat. Truth for you today. I know you said that you're driving, so I'm gonna still welcome you though. Welcome. Glad to have you in tonight's chat. It's been a little while. I'm gonna say Sheen. I'm probably saying that incorrectly. Forgive me. Welcome. Glad to have you in tonight's live chat as well. And I see what you say. I very much agree with that. You said, I got to say, it's lovely to see such great support in the chat. Yeah, I very much agree. I very much agree. Betsy, hello and welcome. And thank you so much for that comment. I should be putting these up on the screen. I forget every time. Thank you for that. I'm so glad these live chats are helpful. Indigo Glow, hello and welcome. Thank you for all those. Welcoming emojis. Glad to have you in tonight's live chat. I also see Live Life. Hello and welcome. And gonna keep going through. I thought I saw somebody new. I still see people signing on. So I think this is Adila. I hope I'm saying that correctly. Welcome to the chat. Glad to have you as well. This live chat is a little bit it's repurposed. The original title of this video was Let's Rethink Valentine's Day. And I think a lot of people are like, I don't really celebrate, or if I do, it was in my past, so I kind of repurposed the topic tonight, and I think we need to talk more about what is going on. I don't know, something's going on upstairs. Sorry, guys. It's my house, but something's going on up there. I think what we need to really focus on is the idea of dark relationships. And I really want to get to the core of why certain people are considered dark. And we're not talking just dark in terms of the dark empath. We're talking really complicated personality traits that has a way of sucking you in, sucking the life out of you, taking from you, exploiting you, manipulating you in such a good way that it's easy to be deceived, it's easy to be betrayed, and it's also easy to miss it. It goes right over your head because the person has been pretty much, what's the word, molded by life's circumstances to engage in relationships and in life the way that they do. So I'm going to break down these dark relationships. I may mention something about this Valentine's Day at the very, very end, just to give you some insight about the holiday and what research is saying about it in terms of relationships. But again, I think we really need to focus on tonight. And I think this is going to be a little more relatable too, that we focus on these dark relationships. You'd be surprised, I think, if you look around in your world, and even in the people that you come across in the grocery store or at the gas station or at the clothing store. There are people who are dark, and they have the dark triad traits, which are, in case you guys aren't familiar, I think you are, but let me just remind you: Machiavellianism, I'm going to break that down tonight, narcissism, and psychopathy. When you have an individual who is possessing, if you will, those three qualities or personality traits, I should say, then, the communication with the other person is just complex. And it really takes a keen eye to be able to discern what is going on. These dark individuals are beyond experts in how they behave, and it's so easy for them to target or engage in relational aggression without you being able to see it. Sometimes it comes across as very passive aggressive. So we're going to jump into all of that tonight, guys. And I think you're going to appreciate this conversation a lot more. I also want you to keep in mind that this is not just about relationships outside of your family. This also includes your family. Let me hook up my battery. Give me 1 second, guys. I don't want it to go out on you. Feel like I feel like I need a second battery hooked up. Okay. All right. I think I got it. Okay. So that's what we're going to talk about tonight. Okay, guys. And I'm going to jump in and really start teasing apart what's known as moral disengagement. We're going to focus on that quite a bit tonight, because really at the core of dark relationships, or people who tend to have this darkness about them, at the core is a loss of morality, and we'll talk about that in a second. Let me just take a break for just a minute, guys. Let me just welcome the rest of you, and then we'll go ahead and jump into some of these concepts that I think you're going to be able to relate to. Ronald Zion, hello and welcome to the chat. I'm so sorry I couldn't target your question yesterday. I do have it on my phone. So, Ronald Zion, please remind me, because you wanted to know about shame. And I'm happy to answer that question. Just please remind me before I go off tonight. Blue Galaxy, hello and welcome back to the chat. Glad to have you. Glad to see you tonight. Annie Welker, hello and welcome. So glad to see you tonight. I haven't seen you for a few live chats. So glad to see you. Erica, hello and welcome. Glad to have you in tonight's chat. Liberty Can, yeah, happy weekend to you. Glad to see you. Welcome. Imagine Peace, hello and welcome. Yeah, glad you're back to catch a live chat. So glad to see you. Yes, betrayal is awful. Absolutely. And we're going to talk about that, Deb, because I think at the core of a lot of people with trauma is that constant betrayal. And sometimes that betrayal just sucks us into a position that is just hard for us to get out of. The betrayal is almost like quicksand, and it just sinks you. So we're going to talk about that just a little bit. Adrian Paul, hello and welcome. Glad to have you tonight. Says, thank you for your certified comments. You can't get healed by unprofessional opinions just to receive views. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. I agree with that. Yes, I agree. Imagine Peace. Too many dark souls out there. Very, very much agree. It's been cold lately. Yes, I haven't seen you in so long. So welcome to the chat. Glad to have you tonight. Glad you made it. Okay, guys, let's talk about moral disengagement. Have you guys heard that term? I put in the community section what moral disengagement was all about, because I know a lot of you probably had an idea of it, but you never knew that it was an actual term. The term moral disengagement is something you're going to see when you look up the research on dark empaths or dark triad traits. Now, I'm not talking about just Googled research. I'm talking scholarly articles by professionals and co-workers of mine who have studied dark relationships and people for a long time. The word moral disengagement really says, at the core of its meaning, it says somebody has done something immoral, and the only way that they know how to justify their immoral behavior is to excuse me, is to somehow have some kind of reason or justifiable reason as to why they engaged in a specific behavior. It's almost like the individual kind of says, you know what, my morals are important, but in this particular situation, I think I could just get away with being immoral. So I'm going to push my morals over there for just a short period of time so I can do this thing over here that's not right, that's going to hurt somebody, that's going to harm somebody, because I feel I have a justifiable reason to push my morals out of the way and engage in immoral behavior. I think a good example, I think you can kind of consider infidelity and betrayal to be a moral disengagement. The individual may seem like they are wonderful and they may seem like they have a lot of morals that are just high and respectable, but it's that one individual that pulls them into an affair or pulls them into some kind of betrayal. And before you know it, that individual says, you know what, my morals are over there. They're just over here hanging out for right now. I will revisit it later. I want to do this thing over here first. And so, the best way that I could protect my self esteem and my conscience is to find some justifiable reason for my behavior. I'm not happy. I never wanted children. I enjoy being with other people, whatever. There's always a justifiable reason to the dark individual that's at the core of moral disengagement. I hope that makes sense. Um, I think that was a long explanation, but I hope that made sense. The other thing that you want to keep in mind too, guys, in terms of moral disengagement is the concept of callousness and relational restlessness. And here's what I mean by that. And research highlights these two terms as well. An individual who kind of sits their morals over there so they can engage in negative, harmful behavior that's going to harm somebody else's well being or state of mind, they tend to be very cold. They also tend to get restless in relationships, and they want to go do something that's either going to stir the pot, right? They like the drama, they like the attention, or they're desiring something that they get when they create drama. Whatever the case may be, these particular dark individuals, they get restless within relationships. Let me give you an example of this. I had a client a couple months ago. I referred them because they needed more treatment than I can provide. And what I learned from this individual, though, before I referred them, was anytime there was a uh, peaceful, calm period, or there was a time in her relationships where things were going great, somehow she would stir the pot. She would point something out that would create an argument with her spouse, or she would, make a move that made her spouse feel insecure and like he couldn't trust her. She would create an argument or create a big scene, or she would pull people into her chaos or drama just to get something going because she was restless. And I confronted her about it in a session. And the first thing she said to me was, I don't like when things are peaceful. I like the drama. I need stimulation in my relationships. And so, therefore, I created. So, that's an example of relational restlessness. Individuals who have the dark triad traits also tend to be prone to aggression. They are irritable, envious, jealous, antisocial, confrontational. That is, in a nutshell, the dark triad traits. And again, the dark triad traits is Machiavellianism, narcissism, and psychopathy. An individual who has a quote unquote dark soul uses their antisocial behavior, I'll put it that way, to create in somebody else's life chaos. And I don't even know if disharmony is a word. It's a word for tonight, guys. Um, and so that's what they kind of live off of. Anytime I see a client that has dark triad traits or seems to have a quote unquote dark soul where there's no ability to really do therapy, I'm going to be honest. I run. I find it extraordinarily difficult to do therapy with these individuals because they are they are prone to certain things, and just who they are at the core. You never know what's going to set them off. You never know what button you're going to push that's going to cause an explosion. You never know what you might do or not do that's going to create some kind of an issue. This is who they are at the core, and this is how they function. So when I see clients like this, I want to help, but I recognize I don't think I'm the best person to deal with this because you're going to push my buttons, and then I'm not going to be very therapeutic for you. But these individuals are really difficult. They're very, very difficult. Now, let me also say research suggests that individuals that have narcissistic traits, Machiavellianistic trait, or Machiavellianism traits, I should say, or narcissism, those things together, research suggests that there are relationships that these individuals seek that draws them in. They just get so locked in when they find a relationship that is either racy, exciting, stimulating, sensation seeking. They can manipulate the people in the relationship. They can triangulate. Individuals who have the dark triad traits, family, friends, coworkers, whatever it may be, research suggests that these individuals tend to seek out relationships that can feed them in a certain way. They look for relationships where they can exploit, they can manipulate, triangulate, they can harm, they can um, dramatize everything. And they can also manipulate with feelings and words. And so research says they look for relationships where they can do all of those things and get away with it. Pretty sad, right? Let me also throw in their cognitive empathy, dark souls, dark individuals, dark personality traits. These individuals also use what's called, and we talk about it a lot on this channel, but I'm just going to throw it back out there. We talk a lot about cognitive empathy on this channel, meaning that these dark individuals know what to say, they know what to do, they know what buttons to push to get what they want and to look the part. So they know what to say to look like they're empathic. They know what to do to look like they care. But it really is just a rationalized, logical level of understanding. There is absolutely no heart. That's cognitive empathy. They don't have the capacity to feel, but they do have the capacity to reason within their own mind what you want from them. Okay, I'm going to take a break. I'm going to pause. I'm going to go back to the chat box and make sure that I haven't missed anything because I see a lot of you chatting away here, which I love to see. Maha 333G. Yes, you did make it. Welcome. Glad to have you on tonight's live chat. Yeah, glad to have you. SH, hello and welcome. Glad to have you in tonight's live chat as well. Welcome. Takami. Okay, Deb, this is you. You're gonna have to help me with this one. I'm so sorry. Takami, Tika Ami. I'm sorry. I cannot make that out. Forgive me. You're welcome and glad to have you in tonight's live chat. I don't remember seeing you, so thank you for coming tonight. She says the dysfunction is so deep rooted and unrealized that behavior is all we know. Yes, the dysfunction is deep rooted, and that's what's difficult. I'll give you an example, and I'm glad you mentioned this, that the dysfunction is deep rooted because these individuals almost plant themselves in your space, in your life, in your environment, almost like a plant. If you're aware of the gardening process, you probably know that once you plant a root into the ground, right? You dig up all the dirt, you plant the plant, and you cover it with dirt. Well, there's a lot of action going on underneath the dirt, right? The roots of the plant is then extending through the ground. And it's so interesting, especially for example, a tree, how far and deep and wide those roots underground goes. And this is basically how these individuals function. They know how to plant a seed, get drama going or cause chaos or manipulate, and then you'd be surprised as how they spread across many domains. And this is who they are. So the dysfunction is very deep rooted, partly because of how they were raised, right? So let's say, for example, this is your mom. She's a very unhealthy individual. Maybe she knows how to plant herself in people's lives, and her chaos is far and wide. She knows how to get the ball going. She knows how to stir a pot, what to say, what to do, what not to say, what not to do. She's an expert at this, right? So let's say this is your mom. The issue is probably starting back in her childhood, right? Maybe whatever abusive environment she was a part of growing up taught her that this is a survival mechanism, right? And most individuals that have a traumatic childhood, an abusive childhood, and they also have these dark traits, these individuals have learned survival skills. And their survival skills are detrimental to everybody, because what happens is they don't care about what you think, what you feel. They just have to preserve themselves. And so they do whatever it takes. So you're right. The dysfunction is very deep. And I once had a client, maybe about 10 or 15 years, well, maybe 10 plus or minus a year or so. I had a client like this, and I needed so much clinical supervision just to deal with this individual. Deb says that person sounds evil, creating chaos just because. Yeah, creating chaos just because. Just because. The individual I just shared with you guys that I referred a couple months ago, yeah, loved chaos. And you couldn't have a dull moment because there was always something. Always something. Yeah, absolutely. Anne Berlin, hello and welcome. Glad to have you on tonight's chat. Welcome. Says all my supervisors create chaos and look to me to fix it. Yeah, that's true. Keep in mind that, if this is an individual who has dark traits at the core of who they are, they don't think they're creating chaos. They think that they are communicating. They think that they are engaging in relationships. They think that they are being a part of humanity. That's not what it is. They are creating a bigger, dramatized issue. This is how they operate. When you find an individual with dark traits, and Anne Berlin, if this is your supervisor, keep in mind that these individuals tend to be very, and this is what research says as well, these individuals tend to be really high in traits of Machiavellianism. Machiavellianism is kind of like this sadistic desire to create chaos in your life. Once they get the chaos going, somehow it either calms them down, they're not as angry, or it somehow deters their jealousy, their way of thinking that maybe you are happier than them, better than them, whatever, maybe you have a better life. It just calms all of those issues that they carry with themselves when they harm you. That's traits of Machiavellianism. So research says individuals who have high traits of Machiavellianism, they're very sadistic, and your demise is their pleasure. So doesn't surprise me, Anne. Okay, let's keep going. Yes, Deb says, I'm glad you run away because they can so rarely be helped since they are not really willing. Absolutely, Deb. Not only are they not really willing, they have terrible self insight. They don't know all the time how they engage in relationships and what the problem is. That's the sad part. Liberty Can says, had years of therapy, hard to find a therapist you can test, especially in a community where they are all the same religion. Oh my God, Liberty Can, I'm sorry about that. I'm sorry. Maybe I'll do a live chat at some point where I talk about finding support and treatment. We'll see. I'll put it on my my mental Rolodex. or my mental list of topics. Imagine peace says scary. Yeah, it is very scary. Can you imagine an individual that's high in Machiavellianism? They're sadistic. They get peace and calm and happiness from seeing you hurt. Can you imagine somebody observing your life from a distance and creating this plot, this strategic plot, and then they set out to get you? I once had a client who was so I don't even know how to put it. She was so happy that she finally found somebody that she can relate to and be friends with and then have a wonderful romance. I think the beginning of her relationship all the way to the honeymoon was just a fairy tale, and I thought it was beautiful, although I kept in the back of my mind this uneasiness that I had about the whole thing. Well, anyway, she met this wonderful guy, married him. They had five beautiful kids. They are a biracial couple. They had five beautiful kids. He's successful. She's successful. Like from the outside in, her life just looked wonderful. But one day, she happened to run into one of his friends. The friend sat her down and said, I don't know if you were aware of this or not, but he had been cyber stalking you. He had been looking at your information online for months prior to him approaching you. He had followed you everywhere online. And he also found it easy to track you because you put your location and all of your information online. She's an attorney. And so he followed her for many, many months. And you want to know what he was doing all these months, guys? He's very hot. He has traits that are high in Machiavellianism. He's a strong narcissist. He's a covert narcissist as well. But what he had done is he had kind of plotted how he was going to mysteriously, bump into her, ask her out for a date, romance her, and marry her. And he had everything plotted out just like he wanted it. And just knowing that he can get over on somebody like that gave him great pleasure. You're probably not going to be surprised when I say this, but they are no longer in a relationship. They're now divorced because she realized that this individual is incapable of love. He had tons of cognitive empathy, but he's incapable of love. Believe it or not, there's family members like that. And I'm sure you guys are probably hearing almost your subconscious say, oh my God, I know a situation like that. It's really not as rare as we think it is. Alita Chavon or Chavon, I hope I'm saying that correctly. Welcome to the chat. So glad to have you in tonight's live. She says, wow, I think you are kind of talking about me. Oh, I hope not. I hope not. I really hope not. I'm sorry. Live Life says, when you couldn't trust your caregivers to provide safety, it increases your tolerance for dark souls to linger in your life. You become numb to it and learn to ignore your amygdala sensing danger. Absolutely. And you put that so eloquently. I very, very much agree with that. It's almost 100% important for people who have a history of trauma to have their alarm bells sharpened, because with a history of trauma, you do become more susceptible to dark souls and dark relationships and dark empaths and those with dark triad traits, because the very thing that's desired, love, understanding, attention, what's the other things, guys? Honesty, compassion, all of those things can be mimicked by individuals who are dark. They can be mimicked. And so you're right, Live Life, you do become kind of what's the word that I'm looking for, conditioned in such a way that your alarm bells may not go off. Blue Galaxy, we're going to jump into the content in just a second, guys. Bear with me. Blue Galaxy says, some people will justify using or exploiting someone to benefit themselves if they believe that the victim somehow deserves to be punished for something they did wrong. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yep, that is perfectly said. Very much agree with that. Okay, I'm just scrolling through. I want to make sure that I'm getting all of you. I don't want to leave you guys hanging. Cheryl Cheryl Kindred, hello and welcome to the chat. Glad to have you tonight. You state this perfectly, a wolf in sheep's clothing. Absolutely. That's basically what it is. Absolutely. Oh, that's so good to see, Maha 333G. Glad to have you here as well. Daniel Lawrence, hello and welcome to the chat. Glad to have you tonight. Says, can you please help unravel the difference between insidious, deliberate, narcissistic abuse and schizoid, aloof, dismissive avoidance? Yes, I can, but not in tonight's live chat, because if I do that, we're gonna bear off a lot. So I'm going to take a picture of your comment, Daniel Lawrence, and we will come back to that. Okay. And I just want to stay on this straight street for everyone, but that is such a good comment. I'm coming back to it. Thank you, SH. I am feeling a lot better. Thank you so much for that. Annie Walker says, thank you for explaining these complex concepts so well. Yes, you're welcome. Absolutely. The only way that you're going to be able to identify these sneaky people and heal is to have them broken down to you in such a way. It's like, that's what I've been missing all this time, you know? So I'm very glad to hear that this is helpful. Okay, let me just say hello to Brian Gerard. I think that's what it is. Hello and welcome to the chat. Glad to have you. Says they are disordered and live in a delusional alternate reality. 100% true. Thank you for saying that. That is absolutely the case. Let me also just say that, and I don't know if I mentioned this already, I may have, that dark relationships or dark souls, dark empaths, and those with dark triad traits, they sometimes have absolutely no insight. So they don't even know that they are delusional. They don't even know that they live in an alternate reality, right? They think they're living life the way they're supposed to, some of them. And for the most part, they're not. They're unhealthy individuals, you know? Let me also highlight some more dark personality traits so that you will have just a broad spectrum of behaviors and traits, so you'll know what to look for, whether that's within your family or in other relationships. Let me mention that rage and internalized anger is something that research suggests is high in individuals who have dark triad traits. Just think about it, right? You have an individual who is sadistic, but they are also they are also not psychotic, but they have traits of psychopathy. They're also narcissistic. So narcissism means there's grandiosity, right? They think that they are bigger and better sometimes, or they think their arrogance and their sense of entitlement is cloaked. That's the covert narcissist. Or if you have a psychopath, you know, this individual has no connection to a moral compass. They just don't have it. It's not there. They don't care about you. They don't care about your feelings, your thoughts, nothing. It's all about them. So these individuals have a lot of rage and internalized anger that really kind of eats them alive. And what they do is they project that anger onto other people, and they harm other people, excuse me, other people, and they set out to destroy you. There's also violence and relational aggression that research suggests is high in these individuals as well. Relational aggression can be anything from passive aggressive behavior to exploiting you in front of others to physically fighting you and beating you up. So domestic violence. So relational aggression goes right along with the anger and the rage. There's also a preference, and these are the things research is showing us about these individuals. There's a preference for short-term relationship engagement. They don't want to have any kind of long-term stability. They come into your world and then they're gone. And that can be family members too. I'm here for a little bit, then I'm gone. You know, I'm close to you, and the next minute I'm in a different country. These individuals get bored. Remember earlier, I said relational restlessness. That's what this is. These people get bored and they engage in short term relationships and then they disappear. And it can sometimes feel like you are betrayed, right? Because maybe you have expectations for the relationship and you're hoping that you can still stay connected. But before you can, you know, what's the word, attached to the relationship in a healthy way, that individual is gone. So they get very, very restless. There's also something known as sociosexuality. And I don't know if you guys have ever heard of that. Have you heard of that? Let me know in the chat box if you've heard of that. Basically, what this is the individual is willing to be intimate with just about anybody. They don't have any barriers. They have what we can also call an unrestricted sexual behavior. They tend to be kind of a little bit of everywhere because at the core of who they are is psychopathy, and there's no emotional connection to that person, no emotional connection to that person, no emotional connection to that person. They're just kind of going through anybody they want to so that they can have their needs met, and then they move on to the next person. So for romantic relationships or even casual relationships, research suggests that if you have an individual who has this unrestricted sexual behavior where they are kind of just a little bit of everywhere, keep in mind that it could be the dark triad traits. There could be narcissism at the core of that, psychopathy, and Machiavellianism. Don't forget also too that there is a high level of moral disengagement that is often at the core of the dark triad, the dark empath, and individuals who are psychopaths. That's always at the foundation, that moral disengagement. Now, you guys may want to know, how is this going to affect me? How is this going to impact me, whether that's within my family, with friends, with strangers, with coworkers? How is this going to impact my life? What are the different ways that it's going to impact me? I'm going to give you those 11 things in a second. Let's take a little bit of a break, guys. I just want to look at the chat box and drink some tea. Okay. Thank you, Blue Galaxy, for the super chat. I appreciate that. I always love when you guys give super chats. You don't have to um, ever do that, but I very much appreciate the super chat. Yeah, SH, that's fantastic. Steering the narrative, 100%, absolutely. Absolutely. Individuals who have, I'm sorry, guys, individuals who have the dark triad traits or they are dark at the core of their personality, they do steer the narrative. And they like to get in the driver's seat of the narrative and drive it whichever way they want to drive it. That's how they conquer and divide. That's how they create that chaos. That's why they like to get things stirred up. It gives them a sense of either self importance, happiness, or in some situations, it actually brings down their anxiety. That's why they are sadistic individuals. Nine Cats, hello and welcome to the chat. That's such a cute screen name. Glad to have you tonight. Says, on a different subject, let me read this before I even read this out. Thank you for that. Yeah, absolutely. It is on a different subject. I appreciate you for that. I think that I probably Nine Cats will bring that conversation back up again at some point on this channel. So stick around because there's been some new research on this topic. Uh-oh. In one of my live chats, um, I always hit the wrong button somehow. You're welcome, Nine Cats. Thank you. I'm so glad that this channel is helpful to you. Thank you. Yes, it is generational. Let me mention too, really briefly, since you bring that up, Maha 333G, that dark triad traits or individuals who have this darkness at the core of who they are, it does tend to be generational. And sometimes it's learned. Imagine growing up under a mother who is a dark empath, or they have the dark triad traits where they are narcissistic, they have no connection, no emotional connection to other people. There's no empathy, there's no ability to connect emotionally. Imagine growing up under a parent like that. You start to learn how your parent engages with other people, which then falls on you. And you may actually begin showing some symptoms of the dark triad traits or behaviors because you've been under a parent who is like this. Not everybody, but it is possible. And so that's how it becomes generational. It's kind of like a learned behavior in a lot of families. Caleb Reed, Hello and welcome to the chat. And thank you so much for saying that. He says, this is so powerful. It sounds like you're getting something from this live chat. So I'm so glad to hear that. NW, hello and welcome to the chat. So glad to have you tonight. Thank you so much, Caleb Reed. Yeah, and I'm blessed to have you guys as a group of people on my channel. You guys are wonderful, and I love how you support each other, even in the chat box. Yeah. Annie Welker says they are looking for the adrenaline rush. Yes, they are. Yeah. That's why research says that these individuals are sensation seekers. They love that internal feeling that they get when they do all the wrong things. Most of us are running this direction when we do the wrong thing or we're shameful. These individuals are not like that, they tend to digest they tend to digest what's going on over there as some kind of accolade to them or some kind of I'm trying to find the some kind of medal. That's the word I'm looking for. They kind of look at themselves as important when they cause trouble in other people's lives. Alita Chavone says, but does that apply to people with mental illness? I would say no. So really what we're talking about tonight is what psychology calls personality pathology, meaning, this is a deep-seated how do I want to put this? I don't want to say genetic, but there is a genetic component, even though it's small, but this is a deep-seated genetic and learned response to communicating with other people and connecting with other people. That is very different from a mental illness. Now, can somebody with a mental illness have some dark triad traits? Absolutely, but they're two different things. Let me know if you need me to explain that a little bit more. Adila says, is it a workplace bully? Yeah, a workplace bully can also have dark triad traits. And again, the traits of Machiavellianism, excuse me, can also be at the core of that workplace bully. And it kind of excites them to get things going in the workplace, even going to the supervisor and talking about a coworker and just being a part of that triangle can be pleasurable to the individual with the dark triad traits. Caleb Reed asks, "What are traits of borderline personality disorder?" I'll briefly go over this. I tend to break it down into categories. So there is self-harm and suicidal thoughts. That's one category. There's impulsivity. There's relational storms and chaos. The individual just has a hard time relating to other people. There's also this fear of abandonment, where the individual kind of acts out when they feel like they're being abandoned or mistreated or something's going on that they have little control over. They also tend to split. So one day you're the greatest person and the next day you're the devil, you're against them. And there's also, oh God, there's one more thing, dysphoria. Dysphoria is kind of like this depressed internal experience. It's like a depression. So that's how you can understand borderline personality in a nutshell. It's just those categories. I hope that was helpful. Okay, I'm just running through this and then we're going to go ahead and get back into the content. Colibri Flyer, hello and welcome. Glad to have you tonight. Says, my birthday came and went. I never had a queep from my older, oh, okay, narc sister. Yeah. If I can say so, happy belated birthday to you, Colibri Flyer. I'm sorry that you haven't heard anything from your sister. Keep in mind, and this may be difficult when it comes to family, because again, we're kind of taught to view family as a positive thing. But keep in mind that if the individual is narcissistic, they're only thinking about them and what they want. As sad as that is. Okay, let's jump back into the content, guys, and then we will wrap up with me just answering your chats and going through. Let me just say, it's been cold lately. Says, wow, I just got chills. Reminds me of the crazy stalker I have. Yeah. Oh my God, I'm so sorry about that too. Let me say that stalkers, according to research, stalkers tend to have dark triad traits. And some of the stalkers, like and we can talk about stalkers too if you guys want me to. We can go back over it. Just let me know in the chat box if you want me to bring a live chat that talks about stalkers, because there's ton of them. There's tons of them, and we can talk about that too because it's relational. So it's relevant to our conversations lately. But let me just say the intimate seeker stalker tends to have dark triad traits. They have that narcissistic and psychopath edge to them. They feel entitled to have you, so they're going to stalk you. And they feel entitled to pursue a relationship with you. That's why they're called intimacy stalkers. They want something from you, and they're going to make you uncomfortable, whether you want them or not. And so there's various other stalkers, again, that we could talk about in a live chat. Just let me know. But they tend to have the dark triad traits a lot, a lot. So, how is this going to impact you? Well, let's start with psychological violence. Now, research suggests that, the dark triad traits, or the dark soul, the dark individual, engages in psychological violence against you. And that could be passive aggressive behaviors, it could be talking against you, it could be going on social media to exploit you, it could be spreading your secrets to people that you don't want to know your privacy or your personal business. It could be rallying people against you, whether that's intentional or even unintentional. Psychological violence has a lot to do with your mind, and it's a mind game. Kind of think of a chess match between two individuals. And the person with the dark soul, the dark triad traits, they want to play chess to not only win, but to make you feel this small. And so that's why it's called psychological violence. It really is a mind game. And what they want to do to you is either minimize your ability to be confident and to understand what you are seeing and experiencing, or they want to cause you to look within and say, I can't handle this. I'm not strong enough. I'm not smart enough. It's a mind game. They have to bend you and manipulate you by going after your mind. So psychological violence. This is weird, but research, tell me if you've heard of this, guys. Research suggests that individuals with dark triad traits tend to engage in sexting behaviors. Why? Because they have psychopathic traits, and psychopaths tend to be very distant in relationships sometimes. And the only way that they can get their internal needs met is to do things that gets them close to what they want, or to manipulate other people. So they can either manipulate someone into sexting, or they send the photos and they manipulate you in that scenario. Now, I'm going to put this research in the description box for you so that you can see this. It is a little odd, right? Because I'm sure you're thinking, I know some people who engage in sexting and they're not, quite, they're not psychopathic, they're not narcissistic. But I will post the research for you so that you can look at this article and read it for yourself. But research in psychology is saying people who sext are sometimes psychopaths, and this is why they do it. There's also displacement of responsibility. I'm not going to be responsible for you. I'm going to pass it on to somebody else. I'm not going to be responsible for your thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. I'm going to pass it to somebody else. So individuals who have a dark soul, they have dark triad traits. There's what we call a diffusion of a responsibility, or a displacement of responsibility. There's also a distortion of consequences. They don't have the ability to go within and understand that there is going to be a punishment, that there's consequences for their behavior, that they're going to be stopped, maybe get into some legal trouble, they're going to lose. They don't have the ability to see that. So there is a major distortion of consequences. There's also this proneness to blame others. I'll put it that way. I was going to use a different word, but to keep this practical, there's this internal desire to place the blame on other people, and that's how they function. They don't want to own what's going on. So what do? They push the blame onto you. And I'm sure you know some family members who are like this. You didn't go no contact. I'm going to give you an example. One of my families had a session last year when I had them as clients, and the grandmother said to her daughter, she's like, you didn't go no contact because of me. You went no contact because you don't know how to be a family member. And so that was a very nice way that they kind of twisted that around. No, my client would no contact with you because you're abusive, not because of them. But the desire of somebody with dark triad traits is to shift the blame. Shift the blame. They also have a cynical attitude, cynical attitude. This is who they are. They're cold and callous at the core. Okay. They also have repeat behaviors. They don't just do it once, they don't just do it twice, they don't just do it three times. They continue the pattern, and it becomes a pattern over the course of their lifespan. Think of pathological liars, for example. Pathological liars tend to lie all the time, repeatedly, whether there's a benefit to it or not. So they tend to have repeat behaviors. Okay, let me pause here and I'll give you guys the last three in a couple of seconds. Let me look at the chat box, see what you guys are saying. Stacy Springs, hello and welcome to the live chat. Glad to have you tonight. Says, you are the only therapist that acknowledged gang stalking. What made you realize it was real? Oh, well, thank you for that. I will comment on that in a different live chat, okay? Because I don't want to derail from this particular conversation. Plus, I'll have to pull up some research on gang stalking and tell you just what our new research is saying. And so we'll do that. We'll do that in another live chat for sure. AJ, hello and welcome to the chat. Glad to have you on tonight. Says, what does it say about therapists who actually like working with people like that? Oh, that's a good one. I know a female therapist who has a male client like that, and she still works with him, even though he did a lot. Let me say that I think we tend to be human beings who we are attracted to what doesn't add up to us, right? Like we've been conditioned to see life in a certain way. And when there is something in front of us that goes the total opposite of what we've been taught, I think there's an attractive side of that. And so maybe that's why this therapist is like, I want to work with somebody like this. Or maybe that's why, the therapist likes to work with this because it's so opposite of what's normal. It's so opposite of what we expect. So maybe that's partly to blame for that. I really couldn't say. I really couldn't say. I don't know. For me, though, my understanding of this topic comes from years and years of seeing clients like this who I didn't think was this way until maybe 2 or 3 years into the therapeutic relationship. Sometimes dark triad traits do not show up until years down the road. And that can be in a family too, right? Maybe you didn't know your uncle or aunt had dark triad traits until somebody died in your family or until, I don't know, you became successful. We don't know always what we're dealing with. So for me, I ran into individuals who have dark triad traits years into the therapeutic relationship, and I could see the damage that they have caused over time. So that may also explain that. I don't know. That was a great question. Yeah, I agree with that colibri flyer. I always get your name wrong. I'm sorry about that. Yeah, Deb points it out well here. She says it's because they aren't the center of attention, Colibri. They want all the attention. Yes, individuals with dark triad traits. These are the individuals who like to stir chaos because it draws attention, right? And sometimes they are the ones who are crying, complaining, um, blaming, shifting the blame. They are the ones doing all of those things because it draws attention to them. And so that's why they engage in those behaviors. I'm sure a lot of you have had relationships like that. Imagine Peace says cognitive empathy. Thank you for that. It's as if they are always observing and taking mental notes about empathic phrases. Yes, that's 100% hit the nail on the head. They are taking mental notes, right? They're taking mental notes of what that person found attractive. They're taking mental notes on excuse me, on how you reacted to them when they told you I love you. They're taking mental notes on, what makes you smile, what brightens up your eyes, right? What makes you tick. They're taking mental notes and they use that against you. That's who they are at the core of who they are. They are just that way. Okay. Caleb Reed, says they do wear masks a lot. Yes, they do. It is interesting to see everything get so much more peaceful when you give them what they want. Absolutely. If you give them a pat on the back, if you give them attention, even if you console them, if you tell them something that they wanted to hear, if you compliment them, whatever it is, things calm down. I'm so glad you pointed that out, Caleb Reed, because that's exactly how they behave. Have you seen an individual like this in your world where, they're raging and they're angry and they're being really intense and they're manipulating the situation and they're blowing things out of proportion and they're exaggerating their feelings and all of that. But as soon as you say, I'm sorry, they're nice again. They're nice again. And you don't even have to be the one uh, to blame. You might be the victim, but that individual uh, will take your apology as if you are to blame. That's all they wanted to hear out of your mouth is, I'm sorry. And that's how they function. You know, it's pretty sad, guys. It's pretty sad. And I've seen it in my office. It's very, very, very disturbing. Brian Gerard says they truly want you dead. It's crazy. I mean, I don't know about that, but if we take the word dead as a metaphor, yes. Yes. They want you to become this small, right? They want to write you off in a sense. And sometimes, remember, I said earlier that research suggests that they enjoy short term relationships. So remember that these individuals can engage in behaviors that are beautiful at first, loving, wonderful, just beautiful. But maybe 3 months down the road, maybe a year down the road, they switch on you. And then that's where you're sitting there probably thinking, what did I do wrong? What happened here? Like, why am I such an enemy? Or why am I being mistreated by you? Why are you betraying me? Why are you lying to me? Right? Because this is how they behave. They can only go but so far with you, and then they change on you. So that's why research says they are in and they love to be in short-term relationships because they cannot go the mile with you. They're not going to go that long road with you. They don't know how to behave or stay in line like a healthy person would be in a relationship for long. They just can't do it. All right, guys, before I continue on, let's go ahead and talk about the last three ways that these individuals can impact your life. And let me just say before we do that, Judith Barrett, hello. I just saw you sign on. Welcome to the chat. Glad to have you in tonight's live chat. The last three, I mean, if you guys have experienced this, let me know in the chat box. But individuals with dark triad traits, and this is primarily in romantic relationships, they tend to have a high, or I'm going to say intense fantasy that they have to live out. They have an intense fantasy that they have to live out. They are very attention seeking as well. So these individuals are the ones who will go the mile with you, marry you, have the best fairy tale wedding ever, and then turn around a year later and want a divorce. That's an example of that. Or this is the individual who is a family member and they love celebrating holidays with you or going to graduations or weddings and looking like a wonderful family, even taking photos with you and smiling, hugging you, maybe kissing you on your cheek and just being a wonderful family member to you. And then guess what? It's all over after that, right? Because they love fantasy. Research suggests that these individuals with dark triad traits, they will engage in fantasy behavior, fantasy living, and that's the narcissistic side of who they are. Most narcissists want things to go their way. They have this idealistic view of themselves and life, and so they really latch on to situations in a way that shows they're in a fantasy. So they tend to flourish, if you will, in relationships where they can live out a fantasy. They also tend to be extraordinarily unreliable. You're going to be deceived and you're going to be betrayed. That's just who they are. So it's going to be hard to make a relationship work with somebody like this, especially if they are high in narcissism and they tend to have absolutely no empathy, right? They have cognitive empathy. They are going to be unreliable. And lastly, in these different ways that they can impact your life, they tend to be very sadistic. They enjoy humiliation. This is just who they are. These individuals will not only be unreliable and desire a short-term relationship with you, they may even enjoy exploiting you, but they will also, in addition to that, they will get some kind of internal stimulation from you being humiliated, hurt, harmed, mistreated. The list goes on. What do you guys think? Does this feel like evil to you? For me, it does. And again, I don't enjoy dealing with these individuals. They tend to be very detached from reality, very detached from relationships, very detached from love and affection. They can play the role very well. And that's why they're scary. And that's why, even for therapists, we don't know what's coming to us. We may have a new appointment coming up next Tuesday. We don't know where we're getting involved in. All we hope, most of us who see clients and patients, all we hope is that we're going to be able to help that individual until they get into our office. And then we realize, oh God, dark triad traits. And so therapy has to drastically change at that point. Because again, these individuals, they can act the role very, very well. But you can guarantee they're not who they say they are. Okay, guys, you tell me, does this feel evil to you? I'm going to go to the chat box and then we're going to wrap up. Thank you, Judith Barrett. Yes, very glad this is helpful information. Okay, I'm scrolling through. Indigo Glow says moral disengagement sounds like the entire family I left behind. My nieces were raised by a sociopath and they have no ability to feel for others. Yeah, absolutely. No ability to feel for others means cognitive empathy. More than likely, they look like they get it. They don't get it. They don't get it. And it's hard to be a family with somebody like that. Hi, Robert Redmond's Clip Channel. Welcome to the chat. So glad to see you. Says, oh, I never get notifications. This is a great topic, Tamara. Thank you so much for that. And I just hate that because are you guys underneath the subscribe button? Go ahead and make sure, number one, that you're subscribed if you want more live chats like this and videos. But number two, go ahead and hit that bell button right underneath the subscribe button. That's how you get notifications. If you already hit that bell button and you're not getting notifications, it's a YouTube problem. And I'm so sorry because everybody should be getting notifications. So I apologize for that, Robert. Yes, you're welcome, Caleb Reed. Yeah, absolutely. Yep. Deb is very helpful. Imagine Peace says, you have been the most helpful online therapist I've come across so far. Very grateful. Thank you so much for that. That is humbling. Thank you. I'm so glad to hear that too. Judith Barrett says, don't wait for toxic people to change. I wasted too much time that I can never get back. Go on to your happiness. Absolutely. Should I say this? Maybe. Don't go against me for this, guys. Some things Dr. Phil says can be helpful, and some things he says, I'm like, no, that's not therapeutic. That's not helpful. But one thing he has said, and you just reminded me of this, Judith. He says on one of his clips, he's talking to somebody. He says, you have taken literally 10 minutes of my time that I can't get back. And so that's who you remind me of. Go on to your own happiness. Don't waste any time, because individuals with dark triad traits will take all of your time and they will go on with the rest of their life. So they've wasted time in your world that you can't get back at all. And so you feel like you've lost, because essentially you have. Don One, hello, welcome to the chat. So glad to have you. Says, good to be back for more work. I rely on my experiences no matter what. Yes, glad to have you back as well. You guys may be wondering, what do I do if I have a family like this? And what do I do to get out of a relationship like this? Or how do I manage the relationship with somebody this dark? And so that's coming up. That's on my list of topics. Thank you, Deb. I really appreciate that. Thank you. Sorry, guys. I'm just scrolling through. Caleb Reed, once again, he says, I am gaining a lot of information and insight. This makes me finally feel heard. It is only God and my girlfriend that fully understands. Yeah, that's wonderful to hear. Yeah, very nice. Glad to hear that. G.J. Thomas says, I live in the UK. My nephew is in a wheelchair and gets lots of disability money. My narcissist sister controls the money and basically spends it all. Is this psychopathic? Her family, they say nothing. It can be. It can be. I would say it's psychopathic, 100%. I would also say it's very narcissistic. There's a sense of entitlement there. I'm entitled to this money. No, you're not. And as a matter of fact, it's illegal to do that. Yes, you may have some freedom to spend the money, but it's a disability check, and the government makes it extraordinarily clear. I don't know about in the UK though, but in the US, our government makes it very clear that unless you are legally written down as that person's person to do those things, you're not permitted to spend that money. So it's psychopathic and it's narcissistic. There's a sense of entitlement there. That's evil, by the way. Okay, I'm just going through, making sure I have all of you. Robert Redmond's clip channel says, I recently had a real life stalker stalk me at my home, and she threatens to kick over my wheelchair. Wow. Yeah, that would be, I'm going to say that would be considered possibly a predator stalker. And that's an individual who seeks to do harm. And they stalk you because it gives them some kind of internal stimulation. There's Machiavellianism at the core of this stalker. They're a predator. They search for relationships where they can harm. Daima, hello, and welcome to the chat. Says, hello, chat. Say something good if you don't mind. What would you like to change in the society, or a nice value like human life or love or something? Say something good if you don't mind. I like that, Daima. Yeah. Okay, I'm just making sure I haven't missed any of you before we sign off. Peggy Deet says, hello, Peggy, welcome to the chat. Says, trauma bonding. I was told most don't get out of these relationships. Be thankful you did. I am apart, but still chained, and no one can deal with it. But God's justice will prevail. Yeah, amen to that. 100%. There is a lot of traumatic bonding in families and relationships like this, because again, the dark triad, in the individual with the dark triad traits, excuse me, again, has the experience of moral disengagement. They disengage from what is right. And so, they push their morals up there so they could do all the dirty, evil work. And yet they keep somewhere in the front of their twisted, skewed way of viewing life that they are lovely people when they are not, right? It's that they have disengaged from what is moral and what is special. So these individuals could actually come across as very loving, and yet really enjoy the process. Here's Machiavellianism. They enjoy the process of becoming almost like a part of that traumatic bond. You are chained to them and they know it. And sometimes they enjoy it, as sad as that is. Okay, guys, I think NW says this is ridiculous. Sounds like my family. I'm sure, and I'm so sorry to hear that. It's been cold lately says, wow, yes, distortion of consequences. My stalker doesn't care whatsoever. I can record his car plates, face him sitting right outside. He doesn't care because he's a cop and the others help him. Yeah. Mm-hmm. 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 I've accompanied clients before we go, guys. I'll give you this brief example. I've accompanied clients to court in the past, no longer do that, but I used to. And some of the individuals that you see in court, the one who has brought the lawsuit, sometimes they fall into the dark triad traits because they're very narcissistic. So they feel entitled to sue. So they take you to court. They're psychopathic. They have no empathy, excuse me, so they will come after you no matter what, and they have this desire to see you suffer, and so that's Machiavellianism, right? So individuals who I have accompanied in the past, the one who has brought the lawsuit will sometimes talk to the judge as if the judge is stupid. And the sad part about that is sometimes, and I've seen this, sometimes the other individual, the judge for example, kind of falls for that idea, or they get like a hit to their self-esteem because the dark individual is so strong in how they're coming against you that sometimes it's hard for you to stand up against that. You know who you are, but when they hit you, sometimes it just hurts. You know, you feel that. And so I've seen this in a court of law where the one who has brought the lawsuit, they're trying to manipulate the judge. They're sucking up to the judge, or they're telling the judge things that's disrespectful. They're talking while the judge is talking. These kind of individuals, they don't care what you see in them, and especially when you identify them. That's why sometimes it's best not to let them know you see them, because that's when the real battle is on. Sometimes that's scary, isn't it? But that's sometimes how it can be. Sometimes you have to be wise and make them think you don't see who they really are. Okay, guys. Um, Adila says, how do we contact you about virtual therapy? Are you nationwide? States. There are some states I'm not licensed in yet. I'm working on that, guys. That takes a lot of hard work. Feel free to email me at the contact information in the description box. You can send me an email, and I'm happy to talk to you about your options and seeing me, or getting some kind of consultation with me where we can talk about your specific situation. Okay, I think I got everybody. I'm getting ready to miss Alicia Riggs. Hello and welcome. We're just about to sign off. Says how to handle medical gaslighting that was done by a nurse and medical institution. I feel like this toxic and dark behavior, almost like a narcissistic, or almost like a narcissist. I'll put it that way. Yes, that's really difficult. I would need a little more information just to give you direction on that particular situation. If you want, Alicia, you can post that information in the comments section. Just give me like a little context, and I'm happy to get back to you on that one. And that's for all of you. If I didn't get to your comment tonight, please put it in the comment section. I will answer it. Black girls getting their shift together says they're emotionally stunted, throwing adult tantrums. Yes, that's another good way to put it. When you can see it, you can't unsee it. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's so true. You can't unsee it. Just try your very best, though, to block the individual with dark triad traits from knowing that you see them. Because you have to keep in mind, if they have the trait of Machiavellianism, this sadistic desire to see you suffer, the last thing you want them to know is that you see them, right? Because now you're giving them a piece of information that they can manipulate and work with and deal with, and run loops around you with. So the strongest position you can be in is to, I had a coworker that taught me this technique in the past. Hold your cards close to you, right? Somewhere you see what they're doing. You're starting to see their patterns, but kind of put those cards in your back pocket, and hold them until a later time. And try your very best again, not to let them see that you know who they are. They don't do well with confrontation. Let's just put it that way. AJ says, this live stream is amazing. I feel like I paid for this and got my money's worth. Thank you so much. And I'm so glad to hear that. We're going to sign off, guys. I am not going to hold you any longer. We've been on here for a little bit over an hour. Thank you so much, Deb, for the super chat. And thank you for that. I appreciate you. I appreciate all of you. I do see someone. I do want to say hello before we go. A Sweden, hello and welcome to the chat. So sadly, I think by the time we realize a lot of damage has already been done. Yes, yes, and yes. But we can heal, but it's really hard. I envy those with good families and feel happy for them. Yeah, I totally get that. I understand that. It's painful, but you are right that by the time you acknowledge that this is a dangerous person in my life, this is a detrimental person in my space, the damage has already been done. And that's why, again, you don't want to let them know that you see who they are, because now you're kind of speeding up the process where these individuals can think up some strategic ways to get ahead of you, right? So sometimes it's good to be like Columbo, play dumb. Sometimes that's a wise position to be in. What's the tea, Emma? Hello and welcome. We're just about to sign off here, but I wanted to welcome you tonight. I'm also going to welcome Andronikas. I hope I said that correctly. Welcome to the chat. Glad to see you. Square of the light ones. Hello and welcome to the chat. It is 100% evil. Yes. I also see a new person. Onyi, I think it's Onyi. Forgive me if that's not correct. Welcome to the chat. Says, hello, I downloaded your videos and not watched it. Please brief me on the summary on what you have been saying. I'm from a dysfunctional home, being in toxic relationships, about to enter a new one. Go ahead and hit the replay button on this one. I'm going to sign off here in a little bit. Go ahead, do the replay. You're probably going to like the replay. You want to start from the very beginning because we jumped in really quickly, on this live chat. Thank you so much, Imagine Peace, for the super sticker, the super chat. Appreciate you. Let me go to Shanika Williams before we go. Hello and welcome to the chat. Says, I agree. Individuals such as these are scary. There seems to be more and more of them everywhere. Very much agree. Very much agree. I think I got everybody. Oh, I did not. Awaken to the internal.com. Hello and welcome. Says, there definitely is a spiritual component to this. Plus, they are perfectionists when it comes to abiding by their script. Absolutely. This is why they're all the same. No individuality, constant projection. Yes. I love when you say that they abide by their script. Yes, they do. And keep in mind that you're not the only victim, right? There's going to be many other victims, and they probably have many other victims from the past too. So it is like a script. I'm glad you pointed that out. All right, guys, I'm going to say goodnight to you. Courtney Fraser, I just saw you. Hello and welcome. Glad to have you on here tonight. All right, guys, I'm going to sign off before I see a new person that I want to say hello to. Thank you so much for such a wonderful live chat tonight. I hope this was helpful to you. I hope you take this information and use it. Go ahead and hit the replay if you need to go back and kind of process some of these comments and process the awesome examples in the chat box and also the information in this live chat. I'm coming back next week with something just as important as this, so stay tuned. Have a wonderful night. I'll see you guys soon. Bye.